Right, and now we're recording. So I would like to show you that we spared absolutely no expense to bring on our guest today. We put all of our marketing skills into stealing things off of his LinkedIn, and he has a lot of great, highly characteristic photos. But I'd like to introduce you guys to someone who I consider a friend these days, Robert Cioffi. Rob, I'd like for you to introduce yourself. I know you're an MSP owner. You're active in CompTIA. I see you everywhere. But I'd like for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, kind of where you came from, and of course, what all this is about.
I don't know if I'll be able to live up to those words, Alex, but I'll try my best. So I'm Robert Cioffi. I'm the co-founder of Progressive Computing, an MSP based in Yonkers, New York. If you are familiar with the New York City area, you know that Yonkers lies in the northern shadow of those tall skyscrapers that we have there. I don't know, about maybe 15 miles that way. Not that that matters, but yeah, so I've been running my MSP for 30 years. We just hit our 30th year in February. And so this, we're just an average MSP. Been involved in the Evolve community, formerly HTG, since 2010 as a member. And then in 2020, I picked up 2 groups as a facilitator. I'm the chair of the CompTIA Emergency Response Team, which is an effort born out of our experiences being a victim of the Kaseya VSA attack on July 2nd of 2021. I can talk for hours just about that alone, so I won't do that. I don't know, Alex. I'm just put myself out there.
Yeah.
I try to be a go-giver. I love making friends in the industry. The more you're willing to share with me, the more I'm willing to share double back with you. So
yeah, well, I think that's what's always impressed me listening to you speak, and I've heard quite a few people run around and talk about being a victim during the Kaseya event, and I can't imagine what it was like to go through it. I don't think any of us who haven't been there can imagine, but you have a way of telling that story that not just inspires empathy in the rest of us, but really kind of tells us all what it was like without boo-hooing about it. But really, I mean, you really just kind of own it. And it's I think it shaped the MSP you own today is not the same MSP you owned before it.
Totally. And there's really no other way to, to handle a situation like that other than to forge forward. And in my mind, just, be vocal and share with the community, because there's only one way we're going to get better. And there's only one way that little old me is going to be able to combat international threat actors that are state sponsored. And that's if we link arms together. So I firmly believe in the community and the power that we have as when we join forces together. So, if you hear me speak in the future, you might see me at ChannelCon in Vegas talking about the launch of the ERT we're doing with CompTIA. Or you can check me out online. You might, see some upcoming announcements about that whole effort. But either way, I really, the peer group community has done so much for me in the past and helped me get through that. And I really believe that together we're way stronger. If you attack one of us, you attack all of us.
Yeah, I agree with you there, 100%. You mentioned the emergency response program at CompTIA. And I'm one of those people who, for the longest time, and I didn't think we were going down this road today, but we might as well. I'm one of those people for the longest time who just thought CompTIA was a company that took my money for certifications that kind of get outdated. And then I sat down with MJ, and he thumped me over the head with all the other stuff that CompTIA does, and he really made a believer out of me. And I'm glad that I learned a little bit more about what CompTIA is doing. But for those who are here who don't really know what CompTIA does, do you want to give us just an overview of just that one particular program? I mean, I know they have a few new things that they're spinning up between what's their compliance framework? Trustmark. They're releasing Trustmark 2.0, which is a CIS version 8 focused or standardized framework. It goes well beyond what CIS V8 covers. But basically a framework, a series of best practices specifically for MSPs that'll have some verification included in the Trustmark certification. And then, they're putting a lot of time and energy into this effort to help MSPs with incident response. And if you want to talk about that a little, I think you're way more into that
than
I am.
So, I mean, what was born out of the attack on July 2nd of 2021 here was the response that I received, the support from my peers who physically came to our aid, as well as even remotely, vendors who also physically came here or supported us in a myriad of ways. When I got through the event, and we believe me, we got pretty singed by that, right? Revenue loss and a lot of emotional and ego bruising going on here, even though we were a victim in the whole thing. But it dawned on me that that whole notion of, I was not able to fight against a threat like that, but I saw the way the community responded, and it was clear to me that together we're so much stronger.
Yeah.
But how do I codify that? How do I organize that? So immediately in August of 21, I registered the domain name msp911.org, just on a feeling that I had something here.
Yeah.
I have donated that to CompTIA. So that website, even though it's not up today, it will be by August 1st. And it's essentially that break glass in case of emergency for MSPs. The day that I got hit, even though I had cyber insurance and we did a lot of preparation for events like that, not at that scale, but when you get popped, the emotional toll that you go through and the psychological warfare that goes on in your head leads to poor decision making, lost timing, just this whole feeling that you're alone. And I hated that feeling, and I wanted to do something about it, knowing that full well that other MSPs probably have gone through the same thing that I did. And I wanted to be able to offer a service for free so that any one of you who I don't know who you are and you don't know who I am, but can pick up the phone or hit that proverbial big red button to say, oh shit, we just got popped and I need somebody to help me. Now, I'm not talking about legal advice. I'm not talking about, forensics. I'm not talking about all of the other paid services that you might be obligated to undergo or to use, or that are better suited to provide those services to you, even like crisis management and communication. What I want to provide is that voice to you, that coach, that mentor, to let you know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And then that you can call me and bounce ideas off me. This is what I'm hearing. What do you think? Well, we've seen some other cases where that maybe wasn't the best thing to do, or in your particular case, have you considered X or Y or Z? And it's not just me manning the phone, right? I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I'm not sitting in in the back of my office waiting for the phone to ring on a weekend. We've got a lot of really big heavy hitters, names that right? The Matt Lees, the Chris Lairs, so on and so forth. Other victims like Eric Woodard, if you know who he is. People who've been through natural disasters and other major crises, as well as many volunteers. We've had 70 or 80 MSPs raise their hand to say, hey, I'm bought into this idea. How do I help?
Yeah.
That are all willing volunteers to help coach through that. Now, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Eventually, what we would like to do is to be able to even then offer, hey, you're in Louisiana, I'm in New York, half these guys are spread out across the country. You need some technical hands to help. We're going to start flying some people down to you. Now, we're not quite there yet because there's a lot of, as you might imagine, some liability issues with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's the help that I got through this, through my attack, our incident, and I want to be able to replicate eventually that as well. So this is all under the neutral house of CompTIA, right? That agnostic neutral, where they're not a product, they're not ConnectWise, they're not Kaseya, they're not selling a product, they're not ScalePad, like where their name's attached to it. It's CompTIA, nonprofit organization that's just looking to better the community.
No, I like that a lot. And, when that thing happened in 2020, the world was a pretty tumultuous place. It turned up in our newspapers here that there was a local MSP that had been hit. And I say local, they were 30 minutes from me, but everything's 30 minutes from me. So that's as local as they get. So I picked up the phone and called, and nobody answered the phone.
Mm.
I left them, and I'm not surprised, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, they were going
they were
through
probably
hell.
getting 40 calls a minute, right?
Yep.
But I left them a voicemail and offered to help, and I sent them an email and offered to help. Never heard a thing back.
Mm.
Now I get that they don't know me. They don't know me from Adam. They don't know my skill set. They don't know whether or not I can really be of help. And a new guy in that situation may just be a problem.
Yep.
Maybe they had all the resources they need, but I could just imagine not knowing any of that ahead of time puts you at a real disadvantage. Having a plan ahead of time and saying, "Hey, I know if I had a problem. Number one, I know that I have resources, but I also have an organization to help me distribute, allocate, utilize, best roll out those resources." There's a lot of value there. So I love what you're doing. I
Yeah,
really love what
and you
you're
know
doing.
what? I'm also helping to because one of the other things, Alex, and I don't know who you reached out to, and I don't want to know who they are, but and I don't know what happened there, but it could have also been embarrassment.
100%.
Just the stigmatism of being a victim needs to be, there is no shame in victimhood, right? We've got to
Especially
remember
not
that,
in this case, right? This
right? And
is
international cyber crime took place
right.
that day, right?
Right.
We got to put things in the right perspective.
My small business didn't stand up to a foreign nation state.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. But I appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on and talk with us about this and kind of destigmatize it, if you will. One of the things that I think, number one, does anybody here have an interest in hearing CompTIA come on and talk about this? I hadn't thought about that before today, but is that something we can arrange, Rob? Can we have CompTIA come kind of give the pitch on this and talk through it?
Absolutely. So that you don't have to hear me, because I'm the chair of the emergency response team.
Yeah.
But maybe we rope Matt Lee from PAX8. Probably a lot of them know who he is. He's my co-chair.
Okay.
And so, maybe have him come and represent it one day, or I can even bring in some of the CompTIA folk to help talk about it as well.
Well, it'd be good to have them here just to answer the questions, because as folks hear about that, they might get interested in CompTIA membership, right?
And listen, I'm not here to pitch them, but they are a great organization. It's not a lot of money. I mean, it's so low I can't even remember what it is, and they offer a ton of benefits. There's a lot of online stuff for your whole organization, not just you as potentially the owner, but your technical staff, training. I mean, they've got a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I wanted to kind of take a step back and talk through the event today. And I'll encourage everybody, come off mute, engage with Rob. You can tell he's an easy guy to talk to. This is always more valuable to you if you really get your questions answered. But if it doesn't cause you too much trauma, can we take a step back and just kind of talk through how this happened and what happened that day, like what your life was like? Because I want the rest of these MSPs to hear, what it feels like to be in that scenario.
So you want me to cry, Alex?
I'd rather you didn't. I hope we can get through it without that.
Well, so I preface it with it, and I joke around a lot. I always try to have a smile on my face because, I believe my philosophy is you have two choices in life: laugh or cry. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So I always try to keep my humor about me. But there are times when I talk about this that I do get a little choked up. So I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear me kind of like, believe me, my mic didn't cut out. It's my brain shut off. To give you what I do in about an hour presentation, I'm going to try to boil it down just to a few minutes here.
Yeah.
But it was July 2nd, 2021. It was a Friday afternoon. Gorgeous day here in New York. If you've ever lived in the Northeast or the upper Midwest, that winters kind of suck, right? Yeah. And relish those beautiful, gorgeous days. The weathermen here call it like 10 best days of the year. It was not only that, but Saturday, Sunday, which was the 4th of July, and Monday were all off, right, for Independence Day observance. They were the same. It was the same cookie cutter forecast, right? Beautiful, like high 80s, dry, not a cloud in the sky. Mood was very light here, right? Not many tickets coming in, right? I decided to have lunch that day, a rarity for myself, meaning I got up out of the seat I'm sitting in and went to the kitchen, which is about 20 feet from here, to actually eat, right, at the normal time. In fact, it was a little early. It was about noon. So I was in the kitchen, facing the doorway, which faces down a long corridor. At the end of that corridor is a set of stairs that comes up to the second floor where I'm sitting. And talking to a guy in my office in the kitchen, had just finished. And my director of ops ascends the stairs and starts, turns down that hallway. And I can see from his body language, even from that distance, his face, there was just something off, something wrong. His pace was wrong. His body language was wrong. And as he got closer, I could see the expression on his face. And I exclaimed, holy shit, I think somebody died, right? Like, this is what I was thinking. Like when you see somebody like that and you just know that bad news is coming. And it was sort of a weird foreshadowing, because I instantly detected that something sinister was going on, but my head was in, my partner just got into a car accident, somebody's spouse or kid dropped dead, or like something stupid, crazy like that. So I shot up out of my seat. I met Jay at the threshold of the doorway of the kitchen, and he wouldn't look at me in the eye. Like, Jay and I have a great professional relationship, and he was having trouble making eye contact with me, and his words were slurred and mumbling. I, kind of like put my hands on his shoulders, and I'm like, Jay, what's wrong? Like, what is going on? And he just looked at me finally and said, all of our customers are ransomware. And that's not something that you can process. It's a little too surreal. In fact, my brain rejected it as just being an absurd statement. Like, no, that's incorrect. You are wrong, Jay. Well, please clarify your statement.
Of course, you with no information knows better than this. This can't be possible.
Yeah, no, it's just not
Yeah.
possible, is it?
Yeah.
And little did I know that it was actually incredibly possible. But no, he insisted back that all of them. And I said, no, Jay, like, which one, right? Which one, right? And then he goes, no, there's multiple. And I was like, okay, so which ones? And I think subconsciously that son of a bitch probably decided to list off the largest customers first and started going through that list. Now, I want you all to stop for a second and think about your largest customers and the revenue that represents to your business. And think about hearing the news that they just got ransomware. And it's not just your number one, but your number two and your number three and your number 4 and 5 and 10 and 15, and holy crap, right? Because that probably represents what, like 80% of your revenue before you get past number 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And to hear that they were all ransomware was a pretty shocking thing to hear. And now it was starting to get confirmed by my other senses, what I could hear and see peripherally in the office. I could see and hear people at their desks on the phone engaging in conversations like, I don't know what's going on. Let me try to get a technician to help. I heard that there's something system-wide going on. I'm really not sure. Let me get your number. Let me get somebody to call you back. I promise. Please calm down. These are all bits and of phrases and the body language that you can see. People became very stoic, right? That happy, joyous feeling of that Friday afternoon of July 4th weekend coming, especially with such beautiful weather, started to evaporate, right? So while the outside world was enjoying wonderful weather, a very dark cloud started to shroud my office. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I grabbed Jay. I went into my office exactly where I'm sitting now, right? My primary screen is here. I got 2 to either side. And I started to just, like, I didn't know what to do. I'm originally an IT, I'm a tech, right? Originally, right? I gave up that hat a long time ago, but I went into that sort of fixer mode, right? Because it's the only thing I knew how to do. Like, what's going on? I started to investigate. And again, I'm trying to shorten this up for time, but at one point I just watched every icon on my desktop flip from the familiar PowerPoint, Word, Excel icons to white boxes. And that's when I knew that I was dead. It was in that moment. And then some other conversations took place, and we started to verify that it was indeed 100% of our customers, 80 customers, 200 locations, 4 time zones. Right?
And how many engineers did you have at this point?
Somewhere in the high teens-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe 20 at that time.
So at best case, 4 customers per engineer. Like
Uh,
that's the math problem I want everybody to think about.
best case for customers per, right. And you figure we had 2,500 endpoints, of which there were 250 servers. So you can also do that math as well.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that because we had this immense math problem on our hands.
Mhm.
How do we recover? How do you recover a customer, right? If any of you have experienced a single ransomware event, right? Like think, like I'm not asking you to raise your hand. It's a rhetorical question, or it's not rhetorical. I want you to answer for yourself. And you shit your pants and you're terrified of a lawsuit. And actually, even before that, your heart goes out to them because you don't like this and you want to help them get restored as soon as possible. And you bear every single resource on that single one customer. How do I do that for 100% of my customers simultaneously? So Alex, I'll admit this, I've admitted it on stage in front of hundreds of people before. I've been overseas to even talk about this in Italy, in Italian, by the way, providing the same presentation to them. My mind went blank for about 10 minutes. I had not even a clue about what to do next, who to call, how to handle this, how to respond, how to react, how to even think. I couldn't even put together a coherent thought to what do I do next. And so for 10 minutes, I sat in my office with Jay standing like right over their shoulder, like just frozen. And he finally put his hand on my shoulder and said, and he reminded me of one of our core values, which is team, was, come on, Robert, we've got this. We've got this. I mean, he lied to me, right? We've got this. He had no idea
Right.
that how we got this. And I perpetuated this lie in a minute. I'll tell you what happens next. And he kind of shook me out of it. And so there I was. And part of my presentation, if you've ever seen it, or if you'll be at Exchange Security, you'll see me deliver it there. Was that I was standing at the proverbial gates of hell, and there was really only one direction to go. It wasn't backwards, forward, sideways, up, down. It was only forward. I had to push the gates of hell open and figure out what was on that path because I couldn't see through the gates, and walk through hellfire. Right, and that was the only path forward. It was the only thing that was going to get me through that moment. Because I know it sounds really, really cliche, but I watched proverbially my entire life flash before my eyes. My multi-million-dollar valued MSP had not just a 0 valuation, but was actually in my mind a negative valuation. I thought about 80 simultaneous lawsuits. I thought about my recurring revenue dropping to 0 instantly. I thought about never being able to sell a product again. I thought about my reputation in the community. And I'm not talking about just the national community of this community, but my local community that I've worked for 30 years building a reputation here in Westchester County as the IT guy, the IT company in this county. Gone, just evaporated. My daughter in college, my ability to pay her college tuition, all the life plans that I've made with my wife completely out the window.
Yeah.
And so, just to kind of fast forward a little bit more, I got up out of my seat. I barked some orders around the office to get everybody in the conference room. And I reminded everybody in a nutshell, what I said to them. I know we're short on time, but is that that I don't know how we're going to move past this at the moment, but here's what I do know. I do know that we've got an incredible culture and an incredible culture here, and we're going to build our strategy based on our 4 core values. And I recited them. I reminded them of them about how to behave and how to respond. And then I just simply asked everybody to kind of go back to their workstations with a certain response plan, something to say to everybody as they were fielding calls while my executive leadership team pulled back. And again, I'm going real fast and glossing over some details here. But that was essentially that afternoon. So the 3 barbecues that I was invited to and the boat ride up and down the Hudson River, all those plans went right down the toilet.
Yeah.
As well as my business. I was watching my business go down the toilet.
So how long was it that you guys were in reaction mode? Right. I mean, it does this, you don't fix this overnight.
No. And so the very frustrating thing, and if anybody's ever gone through an event like this, was, once we remembered that our cyber liability insurance policy just went into effect 4 days prior to that.
Oh, I don't think I knew that part. I've heard you speak before, and I think I missed that detail.
Yeah. 4 days, June 28th of 2021 it was a Monday, was when was the official start of our cyber liability policy. With a new company, TechRug. Again, I'll endorse them. Justin is an awesome,
great humans.
Awesome person. If you have not talked to Justin, at least just talk to him about what they can help you with your business. And he was awesome actually throughout the event.
It's who we use here at Lifecycle Insights. So Justin and I have known each other for 12 or 13 years, long time, great dude, great company.
He was calling and texting me throughout the entire process, just checking on me. Robert, are you okay? Right. He genuinely cared, and he was incredibly helpful through the whole process. But so those, once we were in touch with insurance and was assigned a breach coach, which is an awful name because you're never supposed to use the word breach. But essentially that legal representation to walk you through the process. It was a lot of hurry up and wait, right? So for 2 days, that entire weekend, we sat on our hands until we had a forensic analysis complete so that we understood the nature of the attack, which would then inform our recovery plans, right? So, and for the technical curious minds here, it was 10:49 a.m. when an attack was launched against our Kaseya VSA server, exploiting a zero-day exploit, logging on as administrator, bypassing all security that we had in place, including 2FA, and ended up uploading malicious ransomware, Revel Sodnokibi. They were a Revel Sodnokibi affiliate. Push that out to all the endpoints, and that was it. Game over, right? So there was no data exfil, or at least zero evidence that suggested it. It was impossible for them to have carried out any data exfil in such a short amount of time. So that informed our recovery plans, and then with the assistance that we received from various sources, then started to allow us to formulate actual schedules and plans for who to recover, when to recover, who's doing the work. Even the process of recovering at that scale is really different than just doing one.
Yeah. We've talked about that on this call before. I mean, one of the things that we encourage all of our partners to go through and do is create an extra data field in your PSA or in your documentation platform and go through every single asset you own and assign it a data restore priority. And you have to make that clear to your customers. It has to be clear to you, and sync that extra data field back to Lifecycle Insights, because if you lose your PSA and as part of a data breach, we're often the corner tool that really isn't targeted. You're very less likely to lose us in a data breach that's targeting your PSA or your RMM.
So our PSA was down, our RMM was down, because obviously that was the thing that was affected.
Our tool doesn't give you anything other than a list of what to restore in what order, but that's a good start.
Yeah, no, totally. I will say this too, if you don't, I mean, it's a really good idea, but let me augment the reason why, because when we reached out to our clients to ask them, hey, look, we're going to recover servers, and then can you give us a list of the most critical machines to restore? You know what their answer was?
Everything. I need it all right now. Yeah,
all of them. So it was we were up now against their emotions and even some of their unreasonable requests. And because emotionally we were, and it must be the Catholic guilt in me, right? Growing up as an Italian American here in New York, I've got that Catholic guilt going on, and I felt like, of course, sir, like I'm going to restore because you say so. And that was not fair, and it wasn't clear thinking.
Yeah. But it's what happens in the middle of this, right? Clear thinking goes out the door.
It's totally goes out the door.
Emotions and guilt and these things, they get the best of you. So that's why this is a conversation you have to have early, because even when your customer comes back to you and says everything's a priority, that doesn't even take into account that there's dependencies. I can't
Correct.
stand up your database server until I build Active Directory.
Right.
We need one thing after the other, and that's something that your customer doesn't understand. They're going to have a hard time understanding it when you sit down in a conference room with them and try and build the plan, much less after everything's been on fire. So,
Which, I think it's a healthy discussion as part of your, whatever you want to call it, right? We call it, I'm starting to try to move away from the BR kind of acronyms because they're just too damn confusing. But whenever you're meeting with your customers, talking to them about like the tabletop exercise of just, we've got to, like, let's just assume worst case scenario is that there are limited resources available. Like, what is really the most critical things to stand up, right? And then, so that should that event happen to you, if you get hit by lightning, like I got hit by lightning, that at least you have a more defensible position to stand on instead of just going, oops, sorry, let's just, try to appease every single person's desires to get everything 100% working.
right. Well, and your customers have a much different take on this type of an incident now than a lot of the folks on this call, right?
True.
Let's talk about that real quick. Like, what percentage of your customers are still with you?
So percentages of customers or percentages of revenue? Because that's
you can tell the story any way you want. It's your microphone, buddy.
I don't want to talk about this part. We took a pretty big haircut. The way I kind of paraphrase this is, we lost an MSP, right? If I fast forward from that moment, and I go out about 12 months, so by the summer of last year, we had lost another account, which I would attribute not directly to the attack, but that the attack had an indirect influence on their decision to leave us. So I certainly count them in those numbers. We lost some big accounts for a couple of different reasons. One of them said that they loved us, they didn't want to fire us, but their largest customer caught wind of what happened and said, fire your MSP, they're incompetent, right? Completely unfair. Like, yeah. It's total bullshit, but
this stuff isn't about fair. Yeah,
it's not about fair at all. So it was, unfortunately for us, we lost about 4 accounts in our top 10, and that was very painful from a revenue.
Impressive that you were able to keep 6 of your top 10. Like, that's
and most of
our relationships
most of our top 25 customers, 25, the number 25, not the percent. Most of them stayed with us, and one even admitted to, well, I don't know if admit is the right word, but offered to me during a tough conversation that we had months later, during quote unquote QBR. He said to me, we considered firing you, and one of the reasons why we didn't was because we considered how you responded to this and the experience that you got out of this. We asked ourselves, would we rather work with an MSP that's walked through hell, that has the battle experience, or an unknown one that we don't know and probably does not have that experience?
Untested. Yeah.
Untested. Right. And so that's not a tattoo or a scar that I enjoy wearing, but since it was forced upon me and I can't remove it, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
I don't. And certainly, if you're thinking that we talk about this during our, sales presentations when we're prospecting, no, we do not. We don't, because it'll probably spook too many people.
Sure.
Like, they don't understand. Oh my God, you were a victim, and all your customers were affected. Like, that must mean you're stupid or you're insecure, and they don't understand the concept of what a zero-day exploit is.
Customers don't understand the fact that it's going to happen to all of us at some point.
Yes.
Right. And that's a conversation that we can say it a million times, but none of us are immune to this.
It's getting better. I mean, here's where I think the media helps. I'm not a huge fan of media in general, but now that more and more stories are circulating, I think more and more SMB customers are becoming wiser to the fact that they are a target. And, there's it's not that, it's not a defeatist mentality that it's only a matter of when, not if, but that the risks are high, right? The stakes are high, the risks are high, and that you've got to put time and money and energy behind becoming more secure.
Resilient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it's about resiliency at this point.
Totally.
Brian asked a great question, so let's delve in. And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the one this morning that said you kind of went through some of this, so you've got a little experience. I see you're eating, but you can just shake your head.
I see the
You've
question.
been through some of this, though. Yeah. So Brian's been through some of this. I don't know if it was that same event or not, but how did you go through recovery? Were there backups that were recoverable? Was this a complete rebuild? Did you buy back decryption keys? What happened there?
So
if I remember right, the FBI got decryption keys for this months later.
Yeah, little mix of everything, but the last part of it was a dud. We use Axient Replibit everywhere, and I'm full disclosure, I'm on their partner advisory council for like the last 12 years. I'm a huge proponent of their technology. 250 servers were recovered 100%. Now, the only disclaimer I'll put on that is we did have an SBS, yes, I said those letters, SBS 2008 server, ouch, yes, those numbers. We had this one customer, white knuckle death grip on the server, wouldn't let it go. We could not recover it locally. We just ran into too many issues. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up spinning it up in the cloud. When I say 100% recovery, we lost zero data. 100% of those 250 servers were recoverable. Now, did we run into hardware issues? Yes. Did it take us 2 weeks to get them all recovered because we just simply lacked the manpower? Yes, right. But we got them all functional. Desktops, totally different story. We don't back up desktops. And so what do? Format C:, right? And you're just rebuilding those puppies from scratch. Now, the FBI, from what I can piece together and what I know from news sources, is that they were inside the ransomware affiliate's server and was lurking in the shadows there for quite a while, gathering reconnaissance, and actually had the decryption keys in their hands that weekend. But they were going to blow their cover if they released that, so they didn't. Now, there was some speculation and question about like, hey, they could have saved a lot of people, a lot of time, effort, aggravation, tears, money, and just releasing the decryption keys. Well, you see that flag behind me? It's not there because I think it's pretty. I'm a true patriot, right? My parents are immigrants from a different country. I know what it's like for them to struggle and come here. I know what this country represents. And in my mind, I think the FBI did the right thing by getting the intelligence that they needed to nail that guy, which they did. He's sitting in a Dallas jail cell.
It just sucks to be the guy who's
and it's okay.
Impacted.
Like, listen, I had to take the bullet that day, and I'm okay with that, right?
That's a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to do.
Not. No, it's actually not, Alex. I don't think it's tough. It may sound tough, and you might
that speaks to your character. That's why I like you.
It's not tough at all. It was my instinct was like, no, I'm glad. Like, aren't you pissed? Like, you could have, saved a lot more customers. I'm like, the FBI is not the bad guy here, right? Yaroslav Vasinski is the bad guy, right? Revil Sodnakibi is the bad guy, right? Yaroslav Vasinski, yes, that's the name of the Ukrainian national who was apprehended by Interpol in October of 21, crossing into Poland, and was apprehended and sitting in a Dallas jail cell awaiting sentencing. So
let's move on to the last, what is it, 2.5 years now since this actually happened. Almost 3. We're going on 3.
Almost 2.
Almost 2. Sorry.
Almost 2,
It was 2021 this happened.
2021, not quite 2 yet.
Okay. So in the last 18, 20 months, whatever it's been, what's changed in the way you run your business? Because I think, we spent a lot of time talking about the unfortunate scenario, because that's the overwhelming part. That's the part people have to learn to deal with. It's the part that people are going to find the hardest to swallow. But what are you doing today that's better and different than you did before?
Great question. First things first, it's not like we were doing something wrong that led to that attack, right? So, so there was nothing necessarily for me to correct. It's not like we had bad policy or terrible security hygiene or something like that contributed or led to the attack. It was none of that stuff. But it opened up my eyes to all of the things that we weren't doing well, right? And I'll admit it, right? And I know most of you probably aren't doing an awesome job with cybersecurity. You may be doing a good job with it. There's probably a lot of things that you could be doing better. I think we're doing a good job, even a better than a good job, but it's, so the first thing I came to that realization of is I've got to forgive myself for not being perfect with cybersecurity and just get on that road of understanding that it's a journey, it's not a destination, right? There isn't a product that I'm going to find at a vendor pavilion that's going to answer all my problems, or a combination of 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. There's so many things. There's I can't even begin to list what they all are, but between products and process and people and training and tools and mindset and strategic alignment and budgeting, this is what we've come to bear on the problem of making sure that we're always moving in the right direction and adopting that continuous improvement process. But the second thing, and I want to relate it to like what Life Cycle Insights is all about in the spirit of these calls, is when I'm sitting in front of my customers now, right, as their VCIO, it's no longer the sheepish guy going, yeah, I know this stuff is expensive, but you really got to do it. Bullshit. Yeah, I think now what my authoritative stance is on this stuff. Like,
yeah.
Get on the bus or I'm kicking you off, right? Now, I might not be that jerkish about it. Is that a word, jerkish? Go look it up. Maybe
it is now. You speak more languages than me, so
yeah, I'll speak.
You're authoritative there too.
I fake a third one. I don't know if programming languages count. If that's the case,
I count calculus, so
probably add about 10 more to that.
There you go.
So my point is that I do get I am forthright and steadfast, and I try to be as authoritative as I can with these conversations. Just happened to me the other day. A client pushed back because they were a straggler on getting on some of our cybersecurity platforms, and I was pushing. And then they gave me a verbal yes. I said, reply back to the email. So I've got it in writing. Then he comes back with like, it's too expensive. Can't we get something cheaper, less features? And I basically, gave him an analogy and basically said, no, we've been down this road a couple of times. This is what you need. If you want to, first of all, I'm not going to provide you, I'm not going to be liable for providing you something that I think is inferior. So it's black or white here, Al, like make a freaking decision. And his next response in about 3 minutes was, okay, approved. Let's go forward, right?
Well, and if you really sit and think about it, like we're all guilty of this. I was at my MSP at least. You bring on this customer and they've just got a brand new something that isn't in your stack. Like, well, I just bought it. Can't I just keep it for 2 or 3 years? And imagine the world where you're restoring everything. You have to nuke and pave everything. You've got this one weird oddball thing that doesn't match. What happens to that?
Yeah, what happens?
It goes to the back of it goes to the bottom of the pile, and you get to it when you get to it, maybe.
And who's liable now for making sure that thing functions when it needs to function, right? Especially a backup solution.
Well, and misconfigurations get beat more often than 0 days. I mean, they're second only to passwords and business email compromise.
Yes.
In vulnerabilities. So it's definitely something that we should think about. Like those are the things that create us problems and create us issues.
So just really quick, also, one of the last things that I've committed to is making sure that I've immersed myself in the world of cybersecurity, attending conferences. I've gotten way more, my attendance at conferences has gone up. And just immersing myself into things like, it's at a conference that I learned about CIS controls and why that's a really awesome prescription. It's my belief that it's the thing to follow. You may disagree with me, fine, but that's what I'm doing. At least I'm doing something, right? Like instead of just sitting on the sidelines sitting on my hands doing nothing, something is always better than nothing. In my opinion. So I've gotten a lot more of that security mindset. I spoke earlier about the CompTIA ERT. Not only am I trying to, create a community movement or a grassroots movement, but that's also exposed me to other professionals that have helped me along my cybersecurity journey. So, that's my big advice. Like get involved. These calls are awesome. Go to events, make friends, get on LinkedIn, read stuff, right? Just keep plugging away at it.
How do you find time for it? Right. Every MSP's biggest problem is we don't know how to stop solving trouble tickets to go do the next thing that is really going to move the organization forward as a whole.
Yeah, you gotta step back and take inventory of your own house and prioritize what is most important, right? And I'm not a fool. I understand that there isn't unlimited time, and that I've got to make money too, right? I can't just be the guy in the corner who's slamming his fist on the table going, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to fix this, you need to be perfect, all these things. Yeah, I've got to be able to run a successful and profitable MSP so I can feed families, right? And then I can meet my contractual obligations. But it's difficult to do these sorts of things. What I really try to do is to make sure that any activity I do has a certain amount of ROI, right? So I'm actually working on an idea of doing a presentation around trade show attendance. Like, what are the best practices around that? We go to them, we walk around, we have some fun. Maybe you're at the bar like me at night, having a lot of laughs, right? Getting poor Alex to pick up my bar tab.
I use Marnie's credit card. It's okay.
That's fine. Okay, so she's not here. She'll pay.
Not here to defend herself.
I wear her shirt, right? So
there you go. Oh yes, that's a great one.
Yeah. Well, I was the one who told her she had to put it on a shirt.
Yeah, on a t-shirt.
And I got a lot of interest from just the office, my own team members. Nice. Here. What does that mean? Anyway, so my point is that you gotta be effective at the things that you're doing. This isn't just about coming home going, hey, Robert, how was IT Nation Secure last week? Yeah, it was great. Alex and I got blitzed out of our minds. You weren't there though, but I still used your credit card. But okay, that's the fun part, but what did you come away with? And I try to be very intentional about pulling some of that back and then figuring out ways to monetize those things.
Yeah. No, I definitely see the value there. And I would encourage everybody here to make sure that you have some kind of an internal cadence on which you're scheduling a meeting to just hold everybody accountable to moving the bar.
I'll go one step further. I mean, I'm a co-owner. I own half the company. And, who am I really accountable to? My business partner, but, we go back to high school. So I could basically tell him to go pound sand. I'm going to this thing and he won't say boo. But I feel like every time I go somewhere, I have to do a summary email, not just to him, but the entire team. This is where I spent the last 3 days. I didn't just go disappear and go floating around. My wife thinks I'm sitting at the beach or, and in the pool all day long, right? I'm in a cold windowless conference room, freezing my ass off, listening to somebody like Alex or Marnie educate me on something, right? And I share that information internally, because even some of the things that I don't necessarily think were the best ideas, maybe some of my other team members pick up on it, right? And they're like, oh, that's a really good idea. We should do that. So.
No, I love that. And, it was one of the things that we talked about at MSP GeekCon was sending your team there too, to, getting some of your engineers out and getting them some education and getting them to start thinking security first.
Totally.
But also when they come back, make sure they understand that they're going to be accountable to explain where they spent the last 2 days or 3 days or what they learned and what they bring home that's actionable. I have a pile back there of notebooks of scribbles from trade shows over the years, tons and tons and tons of stuff that you can't make it all actionable. But you have to cherry pick the thing that moves the needle the next 1% and do something. And so, at the end, when I was running my MSP, we had a bi-weekly meeting just to talk about cybersecurity and what we were doing and how we were improving things and what the status was. And, I would encourage you guys to make time for it. It's hard to do.
Another thing that we're doing is I've got a little cybersecurity committee here, at least just to involve other people in the organization, just getting their 2 cents and involvement in it. Right. And
it doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, ours was a Microsoft Planner board. It was a free tool and everything we were learning from conferences.
Sometimes I use an Excel spreadsheet just to document issues or even a Word. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be fancy about this stuff.
Yeah. And Juan Carlos was definitely at Evolve. He knows
Yeah,
what
so
this
you
is
know
like.
the pain, right?
It's always like that. It's always like that.
I don't
So,
know. My wife was like, "No, you're at the bar all day long, drinking, whatever you're drinking." I'm like, "No, no, no, it's work."
yep, yep, absolutely. So we're kind of running up on time here today. I want to make sure that everybody gets that. Um, hang on one second. I got something I got to throw in chat here. All right, that calendar there should get everybody to our next month of um, uh, open office hours and new to life cycle insights. New to life cycle insights for the folks who messaged me. This is the one that you want to sign up for on Wednesdays to get your stuff taken care of. We got some thank you, Robert, for sharing your story. So yeah, we'll make some arrangements to have Rob come back with the CompTIA crew, and or maybe you can just delegate some folks and have them come back. But I would love to have them come in here and have a conversation with us. I know today is not the most fun topic. It's not. It's a little somber. It's a tough conversation. Rob, thanks for sharing it with us.
It's all good. I didn't cry. There's my LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me,
I think a few folks hopped off the camera so they could wipe a tear for you. It's a tough thing to talk about, and we've all been there. Like it's kept us all up overnight at least at one point.
I appreciate what is it called? Like the sympathetic tears or whatever it is.
Yeah. A lot of empathy in this community for sure.
And that's the only reason why I'm so energized about things that I do in the community, because it's not like me just saying, "Hey, we got to do this stuff," and everybody going like, "What's this guy talking about?" It's no, the instant response is, "Yeah, we've got to," right? Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you.
Yeah. But the last thing I'll say is, the important takeaway from this is be prepared, because you never know when it's going to be your day. So exercise those friendships, those relationships,
Yes.
Make sure you know your neighbors, make sure you know the guys who could lend you a hand, and make sure you're there to lend them a hand. It could be any one of us. And when it happens, Rob, you dealt with it with class and you continue to deal with it with class. We watched some vendors not deal with it so classy. So, if and when it happens, I would encourage everybody here to be the first to raise your hand and offer to help. We can figure out the details later. But also kind of reach out to your community ahead of time and see what you need to do to put those those agreements in place that protect somebody or whatever. Talk to your insurance company, talk to your attorney, figure out what that looks like. A few $100s today can save you thousands or $1 million in frustration down the road or more. So preparedness is kind of the word we'll leave it with. Juan Carlos got a bunch of notes too from the talk at Write a Boom. That was the first time I heard Rob talk was Write a Boom last year, not this one.
Yeah, 21. Yeah.
And that was, I think it was a little, that was tough to listen to. Like you
didn't hear the whole presentation. So, because it was, that was a panel discussion. But anyway, I'm rambling on now. So. I know we're up against the hour and I've got another call too, Alex.
Yeah, me too. So I appreciate everybody coming out. We will arrange to get CompTIA back here in a couple of weeks. I know we've got the next couple of weeks booked, but we'll arrange to get CompTIA in here. Robert, I'll circle back with you and we'll make that happen. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming out. And don't forget, next week is a new calendar link and we will see you all back here in a week.
Thank you all. Appreciate you all.